Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is on the ones and twos. Today with us, we have a special guest, a candidate running for District 23 for Congress in South Florida, running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We have Jennifer Perelman. Jennifer Perelman is also a graduate of Northwestern University, where she got her master's, and she's a Buffalo in the Big 8 days, in the Big 10, in the Big 12 nowadays. Jennifer, welcome.
Yes.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. We hear the dogs back there. You're a house
I know.
mom,
I'm
aren't you?
trying to get her to shut up, but she's shush, Lou. Sorry.
What kind of dog is Lou?
Hold on. Lou,
There's Lou.
Lou, come on, right here. Come on.
Lou is also running for Congress. Breaking news.
There's Lou. How you doing?
She seemed like more of a vicious dog from her bark.
She actually is pretty nasty bitch actually.
Wow.
She's bitten a few people.
Oh.
Shush.
So
Yeah.
Don't mess with Lou. Okay.
You want to start with the first question?
Yeah. So, well, what? I don't know if I want to do that question. And okay. So I want to start off by asking you, why are you running? Like, why are you running in general? What do you have to bring that other candidates haven't brought? And what is the importance of running in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district?
Yeah. This isn't anything that's new to me. I've been involved in politics and interested in policy since I was 17 years old. So I was a volunteer on most political campaigns from even before I was old enough to vote. So it's not new, really, that I would think to run. I think it's really just a matter of the timing and feeling somewhat inspired from 18 that there were some non-corporatists that were actually able to get through, and just recognizing where we are right now as a country in terms of the amount of awareness and people that are finally beginning to understand the importance of getting the corporate money out and are no longer buying the typical politician lines that they've been being sold. I think that we've reached this sort of like precipice, right? Where it's sort of, I see it switching over. So it's really more of a timing thing. But as far as like my interest in running against her, first of all, that's my congresswoman. She's been my congresswoman for 15 years. And before that, she was my Florida state legislator. And in the beginning, everything was fine. Everything was fine. I didn't really have any issues. And then slowly over the years, the amount of corporate influence and special interest money just started taking over to the point where now it's hard to discern if she works for us or them. It's sort of like a double dipping situation. And our campaign is completely non-corporate. Our campaign, not only are we non-corporate, but when we win, we won't be beholden to the party either, because while I'm running as a Democrat, it's the only way to do so. We live in a closed primary state and we live in a very gerrymandered district. And so if we had open primaries, she probably would have been gone 10 years ago. But because of how our district is, it's so gerrymandered by her, by design. Her and the rest of our South Florida contingency sort of gave each other bits and pieces of their district so that they're all sitting in safe seats. And I just feel like now is the time to do it. And there are so many people around the country that are behind this non-corporate movement that I haven't seen before. Yeah. So the idea of me running was always out. I mean, I have been told that my whole life, you should run. And I always said three things. I always said, I don't lie, I can't be bought, and I smoke weed. And so to me, those were things that were sort of, like impediments to this idea. And now we're in a place where all three of those things seem to really resonate with people. So I just think the time it's ready now. The time is ripe.
Well, I definitely like the third part there too as well. And the first two mean a lot too as well. It seems to me like you're running to fight the status quo, correct? Well,
completely.
If in fact you do get elected, how will you bring about systemic change in Washington when you get there? Because a lot of people talk the talk, but how do you actually walk the walk when you get there?
It isn't just one person. That's the problem. It's slowly happening. And what it is I look at things like, for instance, Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All bill, and she has 100 and something people signed onto it. Well, that would put me as one more person and my other brand new Congress colleagues as other people. So it's not necessarily just me, as opposed to reducing one less corporate influenced person who can actually speak on behalf of human beings. And for me, I'm unabashedly Medicare for all. There's no, I mean, they're completely single payer, no duplicative insurance. I'm not trying to couch it in any certain way to appeal to certain people. I realized months ago that I can't please all the people all the time. So I'm not even, it doesn't faze me. So, and the other thing that I find very interesting about our representatives isn't just that they take corporate money. It's that they're in it for a career. That's their career, which is to me hilarious because it's not a career. I try to explain this. It's a term of service. And we need to elect people that see it as a term of service and don't take corporate money. I have no interest in sitting there for eternity. I want to live in Asheville. I want to work at an artist co-op. I want bees and chickens and goats. And this is not how I foresee my future. But I find that if anything, I am completely transparent and accountable to the people of this district. And I would be on every piece of legislation. I think all Congress people should have, almost like with the technology, why don't we have like rolling conversations online, like live conversations regarding pending legislation? Why are they not asking us what we want? Well, because they don't care what we want, because they care what their corporate donors want. Right. So to me, it would be a consistent dialogue, whether it's through in-person forums or online constant live, knowing what people think on, and not every little bill, there's so many little things, but I mean, on the things that we know really matter to people, why are we not being asked? So to me, it's about being transparent and accountable.
Yeah. So going off of that, because I do like your idea of having like an online sort of legislature. I think that's important. And I also like the fact that you're saying that it's about not wanting to have your own career, because a lot of these politicians, it's because of their careers that they make their decisions as to what is going to benefit my career. And sometimes as somebody in Congress, you have to teeter that line of playing the game or not. So how will you form coalitions, and in what area of legislation do you think you could make a difference on?
It's to me, it's almost like the coalitions are already in place there and they're just waiting for more people. And I see that it's almost like people welcoming new people with open arms, like we need help. And I especially think that if we're able to get Bernie through, that we absolutely have to have more people in there that have the progressive mindset and are not corporate. So, it's really every little thing. I mean, I don't think we should be in regime change wars. I don't think our military budget, there's no way I would support that military budget. There's just no way. So there are so many things and deals that people make. And I know some of it is stuff we just don't understand. I know that there are things going on that we're not privy to that we don't understand. My goal as a congressperson would be to tell people that's why that happened. So, okay, maybe you have to vote X on something, but it gives you something else. Okay, well, maybe that's how you have to negotiate and compromise, but you need to be accountable for that action. So, and as far as my three biggest issues are single payer, Green New Deal, and criminal justice reform. I am very, very adamant about abolishing for-profit prisons and obviously decriminalization of marijuana, but it's looking like that might happen before I even get there. But that to me, and also commuting everybody who's incarcerated for nonviolent drug offenses. Yeah. That's a really big thing for me.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about your district, because all these things are great. You know what I'm saying? I think that you're on the right track as far as the coalitions you want to form, the ideology you have, the policies you want to push. But I know your last, the gentleman who ran last against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and I know him twice, Tim Canova, and I believe you did some work there as well. And whether you have fair criticisms or not of him, he never really got a fair shot. I mean, we saw the election rigging that took place in Florida, and it was deep. And we lived in Florida. My colleague here and her brother, they lived in Orlando. I lived in South Florida. It's just terrible over there. If nothing's changed systemically when it comes to our elections, how do you think you're going to have a fair chance in tackling Debbie Wasserman Schultz, especially when she's been friends with a lot of people who work in the election system?
Yeah, well, okay. So when I was talking about like the perfect timing of events before, this is part of it. So we no longer have that same supervisor of elections who was Brenda Snipes, who was friends with Debbie, and I was never comfortable with that. So right off the bat, we have a new supervisor of election that was appointed by a Republican. Now, I've met this man several times, and I find him incredibly competent. I find him actually pretty impartial and very competent. I have no reason to think that he is up to anything. And yeah, there are definitely issues. We are also the Progressive Caucus and in affiliation with the Southwest Broward Republican Organization that I brought on board. We've created a citizens election audit. And this is it's a national, and they've done it a couple of times in some cities. And basically there's going to be an app on phones, and it's going to allow everyday people to be reporting from their own polling in their own precincts so that we have a much better accounting of what's really going on. So, in fact, there's a meeting about this in a couple of weeks, specifically about the election integrity. So, I mean, we're doing everything that we can do. And people always ask me this, but really short of going into the supervisor of elections office and holding a gun to someone's head, there's really all we can really do is just be as vigilant and aware and cover as many bases as we can, make sure we have representatives at every poll. And as far as Tim, I think in 16, it's no doubt that he was cheated. I never doubted that for a second. 18, I'm not entirely sure what happened, but he ended up running as an independent. And quite honestly, that can't win here. We're too gerrymandered. It just can't. So whether or not there was screwing around with the election, it's hard to determine what that was because he probably couldn't have won anyway as an independent. So 16, there were clear signs that he was cheated. 18, not as much so. But again, we have a whole different system going in now with this. And also the other thing is, even with all that, he only lost by like 12 points in 16.
Yeah.
And that's with all that going on.
Yeah.
And I would argue that there are many other ways that we make up those 12 points. So, you know, that's you just got to come in bigger so that it's too obvious and you can't do it. And I think that even nationally, I think that's part of the problem we have nationally. It shouldn't be too close to call.
And would you support bills regarding election integrity? I know Amy Klobuchar had one and Tulsi Gabbard had one. Just, you know, not just like securing our elections from abroad, but also from within our own jurisdiction, like the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I support anything that makes voting easier, more available, and keeps the fraud from the election end of it. I am in favor of anything like that. You know, how much of that we could actually get through, I don't know. Part of the problem is that every state is completely different.
Yeah.
And that's a whole, I mean, there are so many problems with elections in this country that when they start talking about foreign interference, I'm thinking, you know, clean your own house first.
Yeah.
We have way too many of our own problems here to be worrying about, you know, some Russian bots, you know. So that's my thought.
Well, you didn't see the Bernie Sanders Rainbow Jesus one because that really made me want to vote for Putin and stuff like that. And, you know, it's so funny you said that let's clean our own house. I sent our guy Rob, the big bartender, I sent that same message to our friend today about this whole, they're still going on with the Russian shenanigans, so I feel the same way. But transitioning to that, where do you stand on impeachment, and in particular, this particular area where the Democrats decided to impeach Donald Trump on?
I am not a big fan of this whole impeachment inquiry. I've sort of been staying out of it. I think it's a big distraction, which isn't to say that I don't think Trump has done things that are impeachable, because I do think he's done a lot of things that are impeachable. I mean, they could have gone after him for emoluments clause a long time ago. So, I mean, you know, the Ukraine thing seems a little, to me, it's more of a circus than anything like all of this is. So I'm not a big fan of it. And I am very, very skeptical whether or not they'd ever be able to remove him. And then I go to, and even if they do, Pence is not a prize. So I'm very, you know, I think I am addressing it more pragmatically than I am in terms of what's the most righteous thing to do. Yeah. And the Democrats, to me, seem to have this issue wherein when they get caught with something, they point and blame somebody else or something else, and it's all a distraction. Yeah. So, no, I wish they would spend this amount of time figuring out how to feed people and give them health care instead of going after Trump. But, you know, I am definitely in a minority on this.
I'm that minority with you, girl. So
Yeah, no, I totally 100% agree with you. I think it's a distraction. We're in the middle of an election. This is so
Exactly.
important, and we need to be discussing issues that the American people are facing instead of watching the circus unfold. And not to mention the fact that Joe Biden and his mates like Nancy Pelosi and their sons have been involved in the Ukraine. They were actually involved in regime change in the Ukraine with neo-Nazis, and this is like Pasta's area too, and that's the thing, like you're right, like they don't like to, once they're getting caught, they like to point the finger at someone else, but nobody's discussing what they did, so it's kind of hypocritical, and I think the Republicans will attack them on that.
yeah, this is in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's area. That's why she's
Right.
hip and privy to this information. No, look at that. No, we're looking at you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, look,
So-
I mean, we're still abusing Julian Assange,
Right.
and it has nothing to do with anything. So it's, you get caught cheating, and instead of dealing with the cheating, you blame the person who exposes it, and we're all just going on like that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the stuff that scares me the most, actually.
Yeah.
What's happening to journalists and whistleblowers is extremely scary and very fascist to me. And to me, that is a much bigger issue. The fact that Julian Assange is going to end up dying if he gets, extradited here, that's way more important to me than Biden in the Ukraine. So, I think it's just different priorities.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to regarding foreign policy, there was so many issues with Maduro in Venezuela, and also right now with Evo Morales in Bolivia. What is your opinion on those situations and regarding U.S. imperialism?
Okay, and this one's really interesting too, especially Venezuela, because I live in a district that, generally speaking, our Venezuelan population are more affluent and more white Venezuelans.
Yes.
Okay, so when people here say our constituents support this regime change, that's a small percentage of people that actually represent Venezuelans. So I have a non-interventionist general policy in life, and it doesn't go without me noticing as to why we're in these places. So with Bolivia, it's lithium. With Venezuela, it's oil. With Afghanistan, it's opium. So once people open their eyes and look behind the curtain and realize the empire and what we're actually doing, it's hard to see it any other way. So every time we go in and support some sort of coup or some sort of rebel, uprising, I know that it is not for human rights. I know that it is not because we care about bringing democracy. So I've seen it. It's so odd. Like, to me, it's just obvious at this point. So I don't support any of that. And the only time I actually support doing things like that is when there's a genocide. And interestingly, that's what we're participating in Yemen, is the genocide. So, the one time where I think we should be getting involved in something, we're on the wrong side of it anyway. So, I don't believe in getting involved in these things at all. I just
do you believe
don't.
that we should lift the sanctions in these countries?
Absolutely. Sanctions are acts of war.
Yeah.
And it only really serves to, the purpose it serves is to really punish regular people who are the Venezuelans, unfortunately, that are not the dominant Venezuelans in my district. Right. So, it's hard here, because if you were to go out and talk to the people around here, you would get a different perception if you didn't look at the socioeconomic issue, really, that really is where they're coming from.
And going along those same lines, there's so much contention in Israel, Palestine. What is your overall sense of that? Do you support a one state or a two state, or do you think there is another way?
I wish there was another way. Honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's very, very hard for me. Yeah. I am a second generation Jewish person born in the second largest Jewish ghetto in this country. So I grew up in South Florida as a Jew, and it's taken me about the past 10 years to deprogram a lot of what we were indoctrinated with about the state of Israel. And I have to first say, I love the state of Israel. I am a fan of Israel. I have family in Israel. I even have family living in settlements in the West Bank, which I don't agree with, mind you. Israel's a hard one for me. And the reality is, I can only see it as a two-state solution actually being an answer. On the one hand, I wouldn't want to support something that threatens the existence of a Jewish state. And to be honest, even if I did, my district would never go for that in a million years. So as a representative of this district, and if you were actually representing the majority of your district, even if I wanted to do that, that would not be in accordance with what my district would want anyway. But then the other hand is the human rights violations and the apartheid-like conditions and the stuff that is just completely unacceptable. And I tell people all the time, we have people being born in captivity. There are people being born in captivity. And I keep thinking if it were orcas, then maybe people would care more about what's going on in Gaza. And so I'm not without understanding that this is absolutely a one-sided for people to think, oh, well, they're shooting rockets. The disparity of power is so unreasonable. So to even think that it's remotely mutual is just completely ignorant. So I am completely aware of the situation. I think we're in violation of international law. I think we're in violation of our own laws. But the reality is Israel is us, but they're. So they're not, their imperialism and their stuff, that's just what we are that. They just represent our interest there. So to me, the ideal thing would be to go back to the 67 borders, recognize the international law violations, and do the best we can in terms of coming up with some sort of citizenship solution for two different states. I'm not exactly sure the best way to handle Jerusalem. I definitely don't think we should have moved our embassy there, and that was like a F off to everybody even contemplating a two-state solution. But there has to be some way to kind of have a neutral Jerusalem, and I'm not entirely sure what that is. But it's complicated.
Yeah.
But I would be happy if we would just stop having people being born in captivity. That would be a step in the right direction at this point.
Well, I know your district well because I'm from that area, and I got to tell you, you got a lot of guts for answering both those questions because I know you do. Your Venezuelan population is more of the Juan Guaido supporting, and you spoke out.
Yes.
I know a lot of you're like, I went to school in Boca Raton, so I understand some of the things you just said. It takes a lot of guts to do that, especially speak against people in your district. So I definitely recognize the big ups for that. Where are you going to get your money from? Are you going to take any PAC money whatsoever?
No. We're all small dollar donations. I'll take maxed out donations if somebody wants to write me a check for $2,800. We take those too. But we don't do anything that in any way would have an appearance of impropriety. So, for example, I'm not going to go to a party with a bunch of executives from a particular industry and take a whole bunch of $2,800 checks from a whole bunch of individuals that they're just saying it's not a corporate PAC thing. No. So it's really, I don't have like a hard and fast thing about it other than I won't be influenced by anything corporate. And the only PAC money that we would even consider are labor and environmental groups. And really anybody that we're already on the same page with, if they want to support us, that's fine. But I cannot possibly imagine that there would be any corporatist that would want to give me any money. They're just not going to want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So if Debbie Wasserman Schultz would actually debate you, what approach would you take regarding her?
What would I want to debate with her?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, name it. Anything. The only two things that she actually has any footing on usually is Israel and gun control. That's it. That's all she's got. I would debate her on healthcare. I would debate her on criminal justice reform. She wanted to put a for-profit prison in our district about 8 years ago. Yeah. So she takes money from payday lenders. I think interest rates need to be capped at 15%. So, I mean, I can't think of something that I wouldn't debate her on other than Israel and guns. And that's probably because we're on the same side of that in one way or another. Yeah. But anything, name it.
You asked her to
she
debate
doesn't agree with me on anything. What?
Have you asked her to debate you yet? I mean, because I love that hashtag Debbie won't debate.
She won't. No. She won't do it. No, she won't do it. And the truth is, I don't see any benefit to doing it for me. The only way she agreed to debate Tim was 15 minutes on the Jim DeFeedy show with pre-planned questions and pre-arranged sort of figure. That's not a debate. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to waste my time with that. And, she has no policy on which to debate. It's the same reason I don't watch the presidential debates. It's not a debate. You want to debate. A debate means that two people have opposing views as to how to get somewhere. She and I don't even agree on where there is. So I don't see the point. She won't support single payer. She's not going to support decriminalization of marijuana. She still refers to it as a gateway drug. She has no problem with for-profit prisons. She takes money from big sugar and the alcohol industry. I mean, there's so much that I don't see the point.
Yeah. How's the ground game in the campaign?
We're just sort of getting started with that. It probably won't really pick up here until about February, where we really start hitting the ground. Right now, it's all about getting ballot petitions to get me on the ballot. And that is not as effective done house to house. So right now, we're more going to events, festivals, different things with large gatherings to get petitions as opposed to going door to door. But come February, we're going to bring on our field director and start really hitting the canvassing and going door to door. And every week I'm out doing something. We do a lot of small business canvassing. I find that's really cool to do, and go in and just meet all the business owners. And you hit up a handful of people at a time as opposed to one person each door. So I feel like for getting ballot petitions, it's been more fruitful. But yeah, it's all ground game, and it isn't going to be about the money. So because she'll outraise us, I have no doubt in my mind she's going to outraise us. But she's going to have to hire people to go door to door, and we won't.
Right.
We're going to have people that want to do it. And that's a big difference, to have those kinds of people versus paid people.
So I know you're a Bernie supporter, but what exactly do you think he's the best to beat Donald Trump? How do you see this race going so far?
To me, Bernie's the only person that can beat Donald Trump. And I say this repeatedly. I say it often. Some people roll their eyes at me, and that's fine. I am very confident in saying that our next president is Bernie or Trump. I have no problem saying that. And to me, the only way you can beat a populist on the right is with a populist on the left. You can't. The person who is selling out stadiums, what universe do we live in where the party doesn't go, oh my God, we have a candidate that's selling out arenas and stadiums and has over 1 million volunteers. We've got it. Let's go. Let's ride this. No, we're going to introduce Larry, Moe, and Curly and everybody in between so that we can usurp that person and make that not possible. So to me, it's so clear. I mean, I can't fathom anyone else being able to beat Trump, not to mention Trump's going to wipe the floor with any single one of them. Now, that will be an entertaining debate. That I will watch. Because other than Bernie, it's going to be a bloodbath. Can you picture him going against Biden or Warren in a debate? It'll be ugly. Yeah. It'll be ugly.
Well, I know there's one other candidate that probably can keep up with him on that stage, but I don't want to get on that right now and stuff like that. I think.
Well, and I like her too, and I have a lot of respect for her. Yeah. But I'm talking about people that are really in contention that we're really looking at that are going to get through. And I have a lot of respect for Tulsi. I don't agree with her on all policy, but I have nothing but respect for her. And ever since 2016, when she was the only one to stand up for Bernie and to step down from the DNC, and the cojones on that woman. So I've got nothing but respect for Tulsi.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So just to wrap up, where can we find you? How can we help you out? Just give us your website.
Where can we send that $2,800 check to? Let everybody else know out there.
Yes, everybody should send me $2,800. No, I have a couple of different things. First of all, we're at gen2020.com. And that's where people can sign up to volunteer, even if it's just helping with social media. So people don't have to live here to help. And that's also where people can donate. We're at Gen2020 on Facebook. And on Twitter and Instagram, we're at GenFL23. And what I'm saying is we're asking for $23 a month for District 23. That's our, catchy thing. And then I have this other thing going out with the burners. I have this idea of a poetic justice campaign. I want every one of Bernie's volunteers to send me $1 a month to unseat the woman who cheated our guy. Wow. And I have this idea of if I got 10% of Bernie's volunteers to donate $1 a month, I wouldn't have to be fundraising, and we could actually be out doing community service, which is what our campaign is going to be, a service campain. Wow. So that's what we're hoping to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Jen, or Mrs. Congresswoman Perelman. I like what you had to say today. You have a good mind on the issues that matter to me. I'm a big foreign policy guy, civil liberties, election integrity. I know Fiorella, she's big, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, the whole 9 yards. I think you had some great things to say today, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Yeah. And, I agree with Pasta. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head on pretty much every single issue.
Yeah.
Especially being a candidate in Florida. I mean, for sure. I know it's a difficult state to campaign on with those issues, but
it is. Look, we're in a very blue district, but I tell people all the time, unfortunately, it's much more of a Biden blue than a Bernie blue.
Right.
And, but It's interesting when you approach people and educate them and you tell them what things are. So when you go up and ask somebody, hey, you want to lose your private insurance for Medicare for all? Well, no, nobody's going to want. So it's always set up like that. And we know this. We know this as progressives, that they're being set up in that way. And I find that when I actually educate people, it's a whole different conversation. Yeah. And so I go to Republican clubs and I talk to a lot of different people. And like I said, I mean, the Democrats, I am affiliated because that's what we've got to do. But their policies do not speak for me.
Yeah. Well, when you get there, too, you got to teach AOC how to stand up against the Venezuelan people in her district the way you just did. I think that takes a lot of guts, and I do appreciate you coming on.
I haven't followed what she has been saying about Venezuela at all. I haven't seen that. This
is the interview with her, you, not her, so we're going to keep my opinions to myself. But thank you so much. When is the
Thank you.
When is the primary?
August 18th, 2020.
Okay, August 18th, 2020. So we have some
August
time,
18th.
but everybody please check Jen Perelman out and donate to her if you can.
Thank you for joining us, Jen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For Pastor Jardula.
Bye.
And Fiorella Isabel.
Johnny Sue on those 1s and 2s.
Convo out. Bye.